All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast. Here with your host today, Richard Fu from richardfu.com. And today, guys, I'm excited to have this man on the show because this is going to be talking about, we usually get a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs on the show who only talk about business and entrepreneurship. But I wanted to bring on someone who's going to talk about careers and jobs and, from a different perspective because, with the landscape the way it is, it's shifted so much that, sometimes we get lost. Sometimes everyone just forgets about that there's an option to have a career if you're not the type of business person who could run their own business or take on that stress, and that's okay. And so that's why I invited Mac Prichard on the show. He's the founder of Mac's List and Prichard Communications. But he helps people really create an online community to engage and find the creative and impactful, rewarding work in their own careers. So he has amazing experience in helping people find the right job for them, if we could call it the dream job. He's an author, he's a speaker, he even runs his own podcast show on a weekly basis, helping people find their dream job. I'm not going to steal his limelight anymore. I'm going to bring him into the show. So Mac, please welcome to the show. How are you doing, Mac?
I'm doing well, Richard. Thank you for having me as a guest.
Mac, excited to have you on, man. And so, Mac, for the people who haven't heard about you and your work, could you share a bit more about yourself, how you got there here, and I guess how you really help people?
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, I run two small businesses here in the United States. One is Prichard Communications. It's a public relations company that works with foundations, nonprofits, and purpose-driven brands. But I also run another organization called maxlist.org. It's an online community that attracts more than 40,000 people a month who are looking for rewarding creative work. And our visitors come from all across the United States and even the globe. And we have a job board, and we also provide educational and training services that help people master how to look for work, because most of us aren't taught how to do that, Richard. And so we many of us struggle with that at different points in our career.
Great, Mac. I love it. And talk us through this journey here, Mac, because it sounds like, and I've seen a bit of your background, is that you love to term yourself as an accidental entrepreneur. And so how could you be an accidental entrepreneur, Mac?
Well, I'm actually in my late 50s, and most of my career, Richard, until 10 years ago when I started my businesses, was in government, politics, and nonprofits. And I worked as a communications director for different agencies. I was a spokesman for elected officials. And I never saw myself as starting a business. It simply wasn't on the bucket list. But I realized I had the opportunity 10 years ago to start my public relations company. And at first I thought, well, that's not me. I don't have those skills. I don't have those experiences. But I did take advantage of that opportunity, Richard, and the firm has grown since then. We celebrate our 10th anniversary in April, and we've always been profitable and proud of the service we provide. But awesome. I realized, while it might seem like an accidental transition, that I'd always been an entrepreneur because particularly in my political work, I'd worked on electoral campaigns here in the States. And a campaign is the ultimate startup, Richard. I don't know if you've had that experience, but typically it starts around a kitchen table or in a living room with a candidate who's the driving force, who has this idea, she or he's going to run for office. And it usually seems pretty crazy because often the person isn't well known, they don't have a lot of money, and they reach out to a group of advice, and that's where the seed money comes from. And over the course of 6, 12, 18 months, however long the campaign lasts, and whether the budget is $50,000 or millions of dollars, you have to build these systems. And then on election night whether you had a sale or not, if your candidate won. So in my career, I've been through this process more than a dozen times in different roles, and I was really comfortable in figuring out the needs of the people we wanted to serve, the voters, messaging, what was going to persuade them to buy our product, to vote for us, how to create systems very quickly, they can produce results and move towards an outcome that would produce the desired result, either the election of our candidate or in the case of a business, sales. So it was the perfect training ground for starting and running a successful small business.
Wow. I love that you bring that up, Matt, because I've never really thought about, like, in Australia, back where I'm from, there's never really any huge like campaign things that are done. But in America, I see it's very different. It's a very different landscape. Yeah. And so I love how you explain it, that it's almost like a startup, right? And that it's also that you start off very small and then all of a sudden you scale up very quickly, and you have to have the right processes, the right systems in place. Otherwise, it's just, and I'm pretty sure it is, right, at most times, because of how quickly it has to transform, like a chaotic mess sometimes, right?
Yes. It can be insane, and you need to know how to thrive in chaos, but bring order to chaos. And the other thing that is, I think, good about that experience is you can work for losing candidates, but if you run a good campaign and your candidate makes a good effort, and you may fail on election night, but doors will open for you because people will see the good work you did. They'll see the good effort you made and know that you know your business, and other opportunities will present themselves. So in my record, candidly, Richard, again, I've worked on more than a dozen campaigns. I probably had a 50% win rate. So I had more than my share of losers. But I always work for great candidates or great campaign managers or great campaigns, and it made a difference.
Wow. Awesome, Mac. Awesome. And so then how did you transform? Like, so you've always known, like you felt like, you've been part of that entrepreneurial or startup kind of scene. Then when did you know it was like the time for you to step out of that and actually go do your own thing? Because it sounds like to me that, you're leaving that security, you're leaving that safety net behind from, joining someone else's mission. And now you're starting out your own one. How talk us through that journey, man.
Well, I had an opportunity to start my public relations company 10 years ago when an organization that was funding my position, it was a foundation, and I was working for a nonprofit, said to me, gosh, we're going to stop paying for jobs like yours because we're changing our model, but we want to continue to work with you. And would you work with us on a half-time basis? So I kept my day job for a while, Richard, which allowed me to experience both starting a business and continuing to have a conventional job. And that lasted for about 18 months, and it gave me the opportunity to sort of put my toe in the water, but also build systems, take risks, and begin to attract other clients, so that when my day job ended, I was perfectly poised to grow this small business that was thriving.
Nice.
Nice.
So it's a very, like, what I would call like the risk adverse person's way into business, right? Which is kind of like the way I did it too. It's like, you're in the job, but you also have this side business, this side hustle, and eventually it just keeps continuing to grow that momentum until then you're ready to take over from it, right?
Yeah, and I think that is it's a great approach, because you don't have to risk everything. You can try something, and you'll make some errors along the way, but you have the opportunity to continue to grow and to recover from any mistakes you might make.
Awesome. And so this is with the PR agency that you have, but tell us about how you decided to start up MaxList and how you balance both of them together. MaxList was another side project. It originally I did it because I wanted to stay in touch with professional contacts. And what I did, Richard, was start a simple newsletter. It wasn't even a newsletter, actually. It was an email. And I sent it to a few dozen people. And I started this 15 years ago. And I wanted to stay in touch with professional colleagues in government. I'd left government to work for a nonprofit. Well, how do you do that? Everybody loves to get job postings, and job postings would cross my desk. Nobody asked me to do this. I set up a list with about 3 dozen names, and several times a month I would forward the odd job posting that I saw or that came to me to this list. And years went by, and I would hear from people who would say, hey, can I be on your list, or would you send this to your list? And after,
7 years, I think I had almost 1,000 names.
Wow.
And the way I was doing it, it had become almost a part-time job. And I my public relations company, and I hired my first staff person, and she said, "You're doing this all wrong. Turn it into a weekly newsletter, and you'll save a lot of time." And we did that, and we did save time. But then it really took off virally. So we went from 1,000 subscribers, actually less than that, to 4,000 in just 2 years. And then it had become a part-time job again. And we started, employers, we would hear from them all the time. And we started charging for listings, and I didn't know if anyone would pay. But so we monetized it 7 years ago. And we've been, employers started paying right away. Nobody complained. And the reason they did, Richard, is because they told us we were saving them time and money, because they were getting fewer applicants when they posted with us, but they were the right applicants. And with big national job boards, which are, they have their place, but you'll hear from people in all 50 states or even people overseas. And that you have to sort through hundreds of resumes rather than just a few dozen that you get from a niche job board like ours. Right. So today, MaxList is it's an incorporated company. It employs 5 people. That weekly newsletter that was originally a few dozen names is now 28,000 subscribers. And we actually have 3 newsletters, and we have a website that attracts more than 40,000 unique visitors and has hundreds of page views every month. So and we've grown entirely by word of mouth.
Wow, that's amazing, Mac. And from such a simple job news board to grow the way that you have, it's quite inspirational, to see that, and now I've heard that, from our other conversations, that you want to expand on that as well, right? You want to help these job seekers actually not just find the job posting, but actually get prepared for it. And so talk us through this pivot point here that you're going through now, and what's that look like?
Well, we're very proud of our job board. Employers purchase about 400 listings a month, but, and we do connect them with high quality applicants. But here's the problem, Richard. As many as 80% of all jobs are never advertised on any job board. And the reason that happens is employers fill most positions through word of mouth. And there's no conspiracy here. It's human nature. We tend to hire people we know or who are recommended to us by people we trust. So our challenge in our careers, and when we're also just looking for that next job, is how do we get in front of hiring managers, and through personal networks and through word of mouth. And job hunting is a skill. It can be mastered, and it can be taught. But most people don't learn how to do it in college and high school. And so MaxList is growing from being a job board, which is a very good job board, to an education and training company. And we're teaching our job seekers the skills they need to find not only their next job, but to have a great career and to find that dream job.
Amazing. I love it. And I think it's really important, because so often we meet people, Mac, that have amazing skills, that are great for the job, but then on paper, their resume or their CV just sucks, and then they get overlooked. And so what are some of the key things that, some of these people should be working on in order to attract and put themselves in that opportunity to have their dream job, and, be open for them?
Sure. And we have lots of content on our website. There's a blog, a podcast, books, and other things that lay all this out. But the key is, first, you got to be clear about your goals, Richard. You got to know where you want to go. If you want to get people to help you, and I say this kindly, you can't say I'm keeping all my options open. You've got to have a goal. And I've struggled with this myself. Sometimes, there are 2 or 3 things that interest me or interest any job seeker, and that's natural. So you've got to either have a goal or a short list of 2 or 3 things. You've got to tell people what you are looking for. Because if you say, I'm keeping all my options open, you're probably not going to get a reaction from anyone except, gosh, Mac's looking for a job. But if you say, I'm looking for opportunities in communications with nonprofits in the Pacific Northwest, then you might think, oh gosh, I know Mary in Seattle, and she works for United Way. You guys should talk. Have you talked to Mary yet? And that opens doors. And so once you have that goal, you just can't tell people what you're looking for, no matter how specific you are. You've got to identify the places where you want to be, and the companies, the organizations, and you've got to start reaching out to people inside those organizations. A great way to do it is through informational interviews, which are structured conversations, usually no more than 20 or 30 minutes. They give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, share your goals. Second thing you can do is raise particular concerns or ask questions about that field. And the third thing is that you do in a successful informational interview is ask for recommendations about other people you should connect with. And if you do that and you have those conversations, here's what's going to happen. People are going to think of you when opportunities come up. And they're also, because you're clear about your goals and you have specific asks or requests in those meetings, they're going to tell you about opportunities that are never advertised. You're going to uncover hidden jobs. And they're going to, and by asking for introductions to others in the field, you're going to connect with influencers and leaders in that world who make hiring decisions. And you are going to make, by building those relationships, and even the weakest of ties, it could be a meeting, a conversation, you're going to they're going to think of you when a position opens up, even one that's formally advertised, and they're going to pull your resume out of the pile and they're going to talk to you.
Interesting, Mac.
Yeah.
And you're talking about this informational interview here, and this is the first time I've ever heard about this. And so for people like me or other people who are listening here who've never heard about that, what do you mean by, what's an informational interview? Is it like, I don't know, do I set up, is that like when I connect with a hiring manager and I say, let's go out for coffee or something, or what's that mean? Yeah.
Typically people will say, I'm sure you've heard this, can I pick your brain? Can we get together for coffee?
Yep.
And I really appreciate the what's driving that. The problem with those phrases and those requests is it sounds like a lot. You're not clear what you're saying yes to.
Yes.
And it sounds open-ended, like it could be an hour, and maybe you got to travel 15 or 20 minutes to a Starbucks. So you're looking at an hour and a half of your life for something that's unfocused. Informational interviews, again, are structured conversations. And it's a meeting. It's a business meeting. And when you ask for it, you walk in with an agenda. And I think a good agenda for that conversation is really three things. You want to introduce yourself, share your story and your goals. Second thing you want to do is you're interested in working in a particular company or a field, and you've got questions about that. How do I get into this organization? Or I'm switching sectors, and these are the concerns I think hiring managers might have about me. Here are possible objections. How can we get people, how do you suggest I overcome them? So you're on an intelligence gathering mission. And the third thing you get out of that conversation is introductions to other people. There are great books about how to do this. In the United States, What Color is Your Parachute is classic. Richard Bull has been, it's a great book. It's been around since the 70s. There's a chapter about informational interviews in there. It's a wonderful book published here in the U.S. called A 20-Minute Networking Meeting. You can find it on Amazon, that takes you through the nuts and bolts of how these conversations work. And what they allow you to do is grow your network and get insights into the field you want to work in. And again, it's a business meeting.
Now it's painting that picture, Mac, for me. I'm sitting here and my business brain is thinking, what's this like, right? And now I think it's like a target avatar or target market interview. You want to go here and you don't know what that looks like. And this is usually if you're making a shift, right, in industry or in career, that you don't know what that looks like and what you have to do. And so you're going out and you're like you're saying, gathering information, you're gathering understanding, and then at the same time you're creating contacts in there. So then, and it's not, and so it's not like you're fishing for like, hey, tell me, give me a job. But it's like, tell me more about this. I just want to understand before. And you could phrase it in a way that's like, I'm thinking about shifting over to this area and I'd love to learn more. Is that fair?
That's it. And, just briefly, Richard, I mean, I've used these techniques in my own career. When I was in graduate school in Boston, I lived on the East Coast for 11 years. I originally grew up in the Midwest here in the States. I had this crazy idea that I wanted to live and work in Portland, Oregon, and which is completely on the other side of the country, 2,300 miles. And I was attracted to the culture and the politics of the state. And here was the problem. I'd never actually been to Oregon. And but 7 months later, I had a job as communications director for someone at the City Hall in Portland, Oregon, the state's largest city, who was running for mayor. How did I get that job, which was never advertised? And I did it by applying the principles, the methods I just described to you. I was in Boston in graduate school, earning a master's degree in public administration. And I started reaching out to the people I knew in Oregon. It was only a couple of names, but I had focused conversations with them, and I was clear about what I wanted to do. I said, I'm exploring, my goal after graduation in June is to work as a communications director for an electoral candidate or an elected official in Oregon. I'm going there because I have family ties to the area. And I would ask 3 or 4 structured strategic questions like, who are the up-and-coming elected officials? What are the races that would be exciting? What do those jobs pay? How do they find those people? What do they look for when they hire those people? And after a couple dozen conversations like that, I knew who the leading candidates were, who the leading elected officials were, and I started meeting with them. And I walked into those meetings knowing a lot about their needs, their problems, and what they were looking for. And I also was able to figure out who was hiring and get in front of them. And that's how I got hired. It's a time-consuming process. I would say in the 7 months, I probably had 125 conversations. And I tell people that, and they say, are you crazy? But I would also say, I meet lots of people who in 7 months send out 125 resumes. And they might hear back from, maybe 5 or 10 employers, and they may have 1 or 2 interviews, and they may get a job offer. But here's the deal, Richard. I still am in touch with those 125 people 25 years later. I don't see them regularly, but our paths still cross because I've built a career in government, politics, and nonprofit and public life in Oregon and the Pacific Northwest. If I sent out 125 resumes, I would only hear back from 10 people. And, I say this respectfully, if you're a also ran candidate for a job and you meet somebody who's on the interview committee, usually they avoid eye contact. But when you sit down with someone and you have focused conversations like that, you make a good impression. And those folks aren't my friends, but they are professional acquaintances, and there are ties there that endure and have helped me in my career. And a number of those people I ended up working with in other organizations.
Love it, Mac. And I love that you shared that it's not easy, It's not easy to go get what it is, the dream job you want. It's not the easy path, and it takes effort, and it takes, time and energy to make that happen. But most often, I mean, like Mac, you require a lot of patience to go through and meet 125 people, and I don't know how many hours that equates to, right? In terms of like coffees or whatever it was. But in saying that,
one-on-one meetings,
in saying that, it's like, and this is what I tell a lot of my other coaching clients back in the day as well, is that, it's not if you're going out and you want to find like the love of your life, for example, you can't just think about that first degree. You can't think about who's in the room right now at that event with you. It's about who do they know that might know someone else. And I think this is the type of web that we're building here in terms of job finding, is that you got to tap into one person. That one person might know 3 other people, and those 3 other people might know the person that you want to be talking to. But if you don't have that first conversation, then you're not going to miss it. I mean, you're going to miss it. And
I would also add, Richard, think about when you've been on a hiring committee or you've been hiring yourself, and I'm sure your listeners have done this too, you may post a position on a website or on a job board, but don't you also send that same posting to people you trust, and you say, hey, I'm looking for somebody, please send good candidates my way. And I'm sure you've done that, and I know your listeners have as well. And so when you're doing informational interviews and you're doing this kind of search, you're tapping into that, because if somebody gets your posting and says, hey, I met Mary last week, and we just had coffee, or we had an informational interview, she seemed like she was on the ball, maybe you should talk to her. You're probably going to end up at least having a phone conversation with that person.
Yeah, I get you. And you're right. Every time we're hiring for someone, it's like, do I really want to put on a job board again and sift through all these resumes that are just copy paste, right?
Yeah.
Or do I just want to ask someone and then someone who can recommend someone else? And it's always easier to get that recommendation rather than having to put it out there to the rest of the world and then sift through all of the copy paste jobs that you don't want to see.
Yeah, and so when we're out looking for work, if we can put ourselves in front of people who are through those conversations, we're gonna have much more success in getting the job we want.
Awesome, Mac. Awesome. And so I want to ask you this here, Mac. I mean, what if you said that for a job seeker, if before they even do anything, before they go out to meet anyone or set up even meetings, they need to be clear on their goals. Right?
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this. I'm sure you've probably met some job seekers whose goals are just, Mac, I just want an easy job so I can take home the pay and just look after the family. That's just my pure goal. And if that's their driving motivation, what would you say to someone like that?
Figure out where those jobs are, and don't wait. Save yourself a lot of time, a lot of pain. You don't have to sift through thousands of jobs to find that position. If you want a job with regular hours, that's low stress and well paying, those jobs exist, but you got to do your homework to find them. So the methods are the same and the need is the same, whether you want to be the creative director at Nike or you want to staff the service counter at the neighborhood post office. You've got to be clear about where you want to go, and to say to say what I've just described, it only applies to creative or high pressure or demanding jobs, simply isn't true. If you want to find a low stress, well paying job, you've got to do your homework too.
Great, Mac. And I love that, we asked that question because I know there's some listeners in here who just might think that that's all they want. So it's important to highlight that. Yeah, you still also have to do your homework because that's not going to fall on your lap, is it?
Yeah, and it may be that you have other interests. You want to focus on raising a family, or maybe you have projects that writing that you want to do, or creative work, and you just want a 9-to-5 job. And I people who want that, that's a very reasonable goal to have, but it's not going to fall into your lap. You've got to go out and find it. But to find it, you've got to do your homework, and you got to know where those jobs are and how to get in front of the hiring managers who fill them.
Awesome. Oh, and one question that popped into my head here, Mac, is, one of my clients where, they're a job recruiter, and sometimes they have clients that come in that are, we'll say like late 50s, like yourself, and they're thinking about a career shift, right?
Yeah.
And I'd love to get your advice on this. Is do you think it's ever too late to go for a career shift? And if not, then what do these people who are in that stage who think, oh, I'm just too old, Mac, I can't go out and go do something I really like to do, what would you tell them?
Well, I think whatever our age, we're all going to have to switch careers several times. It's the nature of the workplace. There are, and I'm sure you've seen these estimates too, Richard. There are experts who say you might have to switch careers 3 to 7 times in the course of a 40-year career. Yeah. I think for people in their 50s like me, it's a pressing question because often we may be working in fields where there have been structural changes, and the opportunities that were there that we trained for in our 30s or 40s have come to an end, and we need to make a switch. Or we may simply want to try something different. I think, again, you need to be clear about where you want to go, and informational interviews are a great way to find that out. They're also, I think, talking to people who've been through that experience and finding out what barriers they faced and how they overcame them will give you insights into how you can make that transition as well. I will say ageism, age discrimination it's real. It's illegal, but it's a fact of life. And so that means you have to work even harder to make the transition, but it can be done. People do it, and they do it by being, again, clear about their goals, talking to people who've done it, having a plan and a strategy for implementing that plan.
Awesome, Mac. Love it. And Mac, so we're going to start wrapping up the show here, Mac. And it's been awesome chatting with you. And we're going to go into our what we call the quick fire question rounds.
Okay.
And we're going to start with my favorite question, Mac. And this is our signature question. It's called the time travel moment. And Mac's like, oh, I know that. I've already got it. I've traveled in time already. I know, Richard. And so, Mac, I'm going to ask it anyway. It's like,
I love this question, actually.
It's so if you could pick a time in your life, 10, 15, whatever years back, and go back to little Mac and give him a little piece of advice that you know today, when would you go back to him? What would you tell him?
Well, I thought about this. There were three things I wanted to do when I got out of college. One was writing. The second was electoral politics. And the third was human rights advocacy. And I've been able to do all three. Wow. But in my early 20s, I wanted to be a reporter. And I thought you had to have a certain kind of personality or bent. And I was wrong. And there's a wonderful book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. She's a professor at Stanford. Okay, you know all about it, which is her, and your listeners may as well. Her research shows that talent, intelligence, ability, these are not fixed traits. You can learn new things, and I figured that out later in my 20s. And my early 30s. I wish I could go back and tell that 21-year-old, hey, you could do this. You just it's a skill. You can master it. You just have to work hard at it, but you can do it.
Awesome. And that leads into my next question here, Mac. You've mentioned a few books already, but I'd love to know, if there's one book that's like a total must read for someone who's in that position where they might not be loving their job right now, but they're trying to figure out, how to go ahead and how to present themselves or be prepared for, making that shift. What book would you say is a total must read for them?
A book I love is called Never Eat Lunch Alone Again. It's by Ferenczi. Do you know that book?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it.
It's about 10 years old now, and he's been a columnist for Inc. magazine and other publications. I think he wrote for Forbes, the magazine, as well. But he is a master networker, and he lays out techniques that he has used to connect with others and move ahead in his career. And there is a classic that we mentioned earlier, which is What Color is Your Parachute? By Richard Bowles. But I love Ferenczi's work.
Awesome. We'll add that to the show notes. And next question I have here for you, Mac, is this. And we've been talking a lot about a dream job, right? Yeah. And I'd love to know, in your words, how would you put together the description of what a dream job is?
I like that question too. I think it comes back to you, the individual, and what it is you want to accomplish. For me, I've always wanted to make a difference about issues I care about or in the community where I live and work, and ideally both. And I've been fortunate to find opportunities to do that. But it's different for every person, Richard, and it comes back to an individual's values and what motivates them, and often that comes from their family and their community, and that is what drives the goals they set for themselves. So I would say so many people sometimes we have to take paycheck jobs, and I've taken my share, and it is better to work than to not work. There's a dignity that comes with work, even a job that you may not be crazy about. But if you take that paycheck job, give it your all and show up every day and behave like a professional, and it'll be more rewarding that way. But never lose sight of the goal that of that dream job that you want. And sometimes you have to chase it for a while. But, and if you have to take a paycheck job in the meantime, do it, but don't give up on the goal you've set for yourself.
Wow, Mac, I think you're going to answer my next question, which was like the best piece of advice you ever got given. And I think like that's what happened to me, Mac, was that, I was in a job where it was just a paycheck, and I knew it was just a paycheck. And yet I still said, and I remember my boss at the time knew it was just a paycheck job for me as well. And I told her, look, although it's just a paycheck job, I'm here and I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to make it as great as I can. I'm going to be professional. I'll deliver what we need to deliver because I'm here and this is what I'm getting paid to do. So I will do it. But, you do it to the best of your abilities at that time. Yeah. And then knowing that you still have the other mission, the other thing that you want to work on, and you got to still continue building that as well. So I love that piece of advice, Max. So thank you for bringing that on.
Yeah. And I bet you and that boss that you had at the time are still on good terms.
Yeah. Like, I haven't spoken to her in a while, but I'm sure we cross paths. She'll give up time and we'll be like, hey, for sure, Richard, I'm in America. Let's go. Right. And we'll go for lunch and I'll take you out. And we'll be like, cool. Yeah. And it's not only that. And I think it's not just between your bosses, it's like everyone else gets to see it as well.
Right.
When you bring that, everyone else gets to see it that, okay, this might not be the thing that you love to do, but, you're doing a great job at it. But imagine if you did do the thing that you loved, how much more different would that be? Right?
Yeah.
All right, Mac. And so, I just want to say, Mac, thank you for jumping on the show. It's been an honor having you on here on the show.
Thank you, Richard.
And so for people who want to connect with you, Mac, and learn more about your work, where's the best place they should head to?
Go to our website, maxlist.org/ and I'm sorry, Richard.
That's cool.
Yeah, just go to maxlist.org and that'll be terrific.
Awesome. We'll add that in the show notes and any other links as well. And Mac, one last thing here. I mean, we've discussed a lot on the show, and I'd love to ask you here. I mean, like, is there anything else you'd love to add that we didn't get a chance to talk about on the show today?
No, I think we covered it. I would say about our website, we've got a special URL for your listeners, maxlist.org/forge-your-life. But I guess I would add one other thing, Richard, and that's that I encourage people to aim high. Sometimes we think we have to settle, and we don't. If we were clear about where we want to go, you can be amazed at the doors that will open for you. So I've applied that. The people I see who are most successful apply that principle to both their personal and professional lives. It makes a huge difference.
Oh, awesome. I love it, Mac. I love it. And so, Mac, once again, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been awesome having you on and having you share your wisdom here with all the people who are looking to seek for their dream job as well.
Great. Well, thank you, Richard. It's been a pleasure.
All right, guys. And so this wraps up another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast. Here today with the dream job maker himself, Mac Prichard. And I know Mac doesn't want to keep this a secret. I don't want to keep this a secret. So we need to aim high. We need to aim high and make sure that this goes out there. There's so many other people who are looking to create and find their dream job and put themselves in that position. So for us to do that, I'd love for you to go over to iTunes to rate the show so that we can get Mac's message out there and all the other guests who have been on the show out there as well. And of course, guys, you can head on over to richardfu.com to grab the show notes and all the resources that Mac has shared here today. And finally, guys, go out there and go live with love and go smash it. And I'll see you again on the next one.